Hi folks. Before I get into this, I wanted to digress slightly. So at the start of this, Michael Marsh mentioned that he struggled to get his blood results easily, and I just wondered if that is a big problem for patients. Is that a big problem for patients?
Yeah.
Okay, good answer. So I'm a 5-year kidney transplant patient in December, woohoo, and you guys did that for me, which is fantastic, which I love you for. And I use something called Patient View for that. And Patient View, I get my bloods taken every 3 months on a Monday morning, and I get my results Monday afternoon from my phone. Just wondered if anybody knew that. And if you don't, why don't you, I guess? So, how come Michael Marsh is struggling to get his results, and little me here gets them the same day? So just interested me. So raise that point and see what you thought of that. Pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. What I use.
Just for kidney patients, though.
I have no idea, is it? So,
Yeah.
but I sell that, so I, when I speak to people, I get look at my results, look at my own creatinine, look how cool is this? So, if I'm a patient saying that, how cool would that be if everybody was? Anyway, this has nothing to do with that at all. Turning the Tanker is a presentation that the council did about 6 months ago at Agile on the Beach conference. They can't be here today, so you're stuck with me. So this is about their start of their digital journey. And it looks at it from a perspective of not really any technology and software, which is interesting when we talk about digital, but it's more around cultures, behaviours, and how you operate. That word agile, which I don't like that much anymore, but it's used, and I need to use it so you understand what I'm talking about. Okay? Let's see if this works. So very quickly about me, I'm Andy Roberts, so I work for a company called Headforwards. Stuff I do is, I love coaching, building teams, building up people, and my whole job in life is to make people and teams the best they can be. That's what I love to do. I've also got agile experience. I've done a lot of stuff. I've held CIO roles, stuff like that. I've done many things, so I've got a broad spectrum of environments, which is really useful. At the council, we've been working there for 12 months, helping them on this journey, basically. And we've helped them with consultancy, agile, building teams. Also, we've provided some resource to them in their key areas, which is business intelligence and customer experience, which is big areas in the digital space. I thought it was only fair to put them on here because a lot of this content is theirs. So Mark Rudge and Suzanne Manson were the people that gave this for the council. I think they did a great job of it. You can see it on YouTube if you want to see the whole thing. It's about 45 minutes. Really worth watching if you get a chance. So the council, it's got about 8,000 employees, biggest employer in Cornwall. 8,000 is a lot, but it's a lot bigger. But I don't think that's their biggest problem. Their biggest problem is their diversity of work. I think there were 7 districts some time ago, and then they were brought into one. That brings a lot of history. Those are some of the things they deal with, and there's so many more. And it was just to give you an idea that I think that the Cornwall Council is like many companies working together. So it's a very difficult and challenging thing from an IT department to take on all those different areas, get demands from all those areas. So I think that's why IT have struggled to support the council. So they use this analogy of the tanker, and that's why it's called Turn the Tanker. So they saw this huge beast of a vehicle that's really hard to turn, but not just hard to turn, but hard to stop. So I think some of the information they gave out was that it takes 20 minutes to stop a tanker, 15-minute emergency stop, and when they're coming into port, they actually switch off the engines 15 miles out. So there's a lot of momentum behind this beast, so it's very hard to turn, and that's how they feel Cornwall Council has been for them. So obviously they're looking to change that. Some of the typical problems they've seen are old tech, bureaucracy, typical one there, and long-term planning. And I put that there, and I hear you all talking about your long-term plans. So be interesting if you've got any questions of why they saw that as a problem. So that would be interesting to have a conversation about. When they went to Agile on the Beach last year in 2018, which is a conference down in Falmouth. There was a presentation there, and it was about the CIA had done this paper on how organisations sabotage themselves, which is quite interesting. And the top 4 came up, and Cornwall Council thought, we do all of them. We do every one of them to sabotage ourselves. Demanding written orders, so that's like, there's a form to fill in for everything. I'm sure some of this is, rings true with you guys. A form to fill in for everything. The form is slightly wrong, it gets rejected. So things are slow because of that. Refer to a committee. Not my words, a council love committees. There's loads of committees. It's almost impossible to get a decision made. So these are all these sabotage things they do. Do everything through channels. So if you put something through the wrong channel, it gets rejected. So it's all slow, isn't it? There's no speed in this. Everything is pushback. And no shortcuts. So you can't have a conversation with somebody in the kitchen and get something moving, a great idea. No, you'll have to go and put that through the right channel. We can't do anything with that. You're going to have to wait. And everything's a waiting game. And then as they've moved on, they've noticed some others. Avoid talking to customers. We all know these days that the best thing you do is talk to your customers. Have your developers talking to your customers. It's the way you get things done. But that's what they did. So they got involved in projects halfway through. They took documents and built things off documents rather than asking people what they want. And that's what's been happening. Insisted on multitasking. Last year they had 80 projects in Flow. Nobody can have 80 projects in Flow. You're going to tell me you've got more in a minute, but you should. Okay. But you shouldn't, because you can't do it. And they have this resource model where you've got all these people and they're 10% here and 15% here. It doesn't work because you've got no focus. People can't work like that, so nothing gets done, does it? As I'm sure you see in your world. And people to big projects. So they have these strategic projects, and this is this long-term planning, these big critical things that need to be done. They get piled onto these projects, but take 2 years. So you don't see any value early, do you? You're waiting for this big drop, and this big drop, when it turns up, probably isn't what you wanted anyway. So a lot of mistakes made, and this came from this CIA paper. It's really interesting that they had this eureka moment on this. So based on those sort of things, obviously I think we've got to change. We can't get anything done, because this is about getting stuff done. This is about getting value to their customers like you want to your patients. Similar thing, just a different area of work. So they, all this stuff, they thought, let's look at RA and be honest about it and see if it works. And obviously they thought, well, it doesn't, does it? Everything's slow. We don't get anything done. Our customers just moan at us. And, that in some cases they haven't got a very good reputation with the people of Cornwall, because they think the site's rubbish, they think this is rubbish, they think everything's slow, they think they don't get the waste taken away. There's all these loads of things that don't happen. So even if they are doing things well or they're working really hard, their reputation is, slanted on those things, as you'd expect. So they thought, right, if we've got to go from A to B, there must be a better way. What I liked that they did, though, they actually they looked for support. They didn't try and just do this themselves. They've gone looking for ideas and help from people, from conferences. And they also thought, we can't just figure out what we want to do. We've got to figure a way out to bring it to life. So it's easy to come up with a new idea, but it's then getting everybody on that journey. That's always a difficult thing, isn't it? And if you don't get people on the journey, it doesn't happen. So what did they do? So they went looking for support. They went to Agile on the Beach, which I've mentioned a couple of times. They went to that conference and had this eureka moment about the word agile, and we can do everything agile, and there's a limit to that, and there are great things in it, but it can be construed in different ways, and I could do a whole presentation on that alone. They went to the Gartner Symposium. It's a great thing to go to. It has its pros and cons as well, but you can glean some blinders out there, because so many CIOs, it's such a big event, there's so much research that goes into Gartner, and we started to help them on that agile side, people side. Worth saying that two things that came at the Gartner Symposium was continuous next and product centric. I'm going to talk more about that later, so I won't talk about that here. But continuous next, they bring out these wonderful words, don't they? It sounds all exciting. But this is about continuous improvement of how you do things, your process, continuous delivery, all these continuous things. But it's all about doing it faster, in smaller chunks, and getting things done and getting value out quickly. You can easily Google that and read about it. Three things I picked out of the presentation I really liked. Well, I really liked it, but it's explaining it. So the first one is they thought digital equals agile. It does, but unless you know what agile is, it doesn't really tell you a lot. But I think what they were trying to say was, if you work in a traditional way, digital is very difficult, because digital is all about moving fast. Digital is reading your customers and your patients and your clients before it happens. It's all those sort of things. So if you find something out and you want to do something, it's going to take you a year to do it. That's no good these days. That doesn't work these days. You need to move very quickly, and you need to deliver value in small chunks. And that's the difficult thing, getting good at that and getting good at working out what can be small chunks of value, because that's where people struggle with this whole thing, I think. But I really agree with that, and I like that terminology. Doing is learning. So, in a lot of ways, if you wait for the perfect requirements, for a project that's a year long, you want to know everything that needs to be done for that project, every little detail. Well, things change, so it's a pointless exercise anyway. But why don't you just try and do stuff? And what I liked about Cornwall Council, they just started to try and do stuff. And I know in some circumstances you've got to do things properly, especially if it's life and death and stuff. But there are places when you're building software or you're doing things that you can learn just by trying things. And that's a big culture change. Just try it. It's not right, change it. Try it a different way. And it works a treat, and you move so much quicker. And the last one there, delivery is addictive, and it is. I don't know your delivery cycles. I think there's a few CIOs in here, but I don't know your delivery cycles. If you deliver once a week value, deliver once every 6 months, deliver once every 2 years, I have no idea. But delivery is addictive. Teams we work with, started working with in Cornwall Council, they are delivering something every couple of weeks. We're doing 2-week sprints, for example. But they're small things, but you get inventive about what you're delivering, and it's how you deliver it. It might not be all set up perfectly, but you might be able to deliver somebody to look at so they can get some value out of it, and then you can retrospectively make it all work properly. So there's different ways of doing it, rather than taking all year to build something that's not quite right anyway. So delivering on a regular basis is great for the people building. They get a good feel that they're getting value to customers. One thing psychologically, it really makes a change and breaks down a lot of barriers, is that then the customers are not, the deadlines aren't always solid deadlines. So if you've got a project for 6 months and you don't get everything you want, and then you've got to wait another 6 months for it, that's really annoying. But if you've got something coming in the week and you don't get it, it's going to be next week. Is that bad? No, of course it's not. So that relationship builds better because that constant delivery is there and that trust is there. Totally different world and way of working. So that was some of the things around how they could work better. So from that, they wanted to build some principles, and a lot of this is related to Agile, to be honest. And if you are familiar with Agile, you'll recognise them. So the first one, individuals and interactions. So a good example of that. So before we started doing this type of work in the council, you'd need a mandate, you need to get the budget signed off before you could do anything at all, and you'd need a business case, and you'd be 12 weeks down the road before you even look at providing a solution or even talking to a developer about building anything. Just recently, we got the right people in the room, which I'll talk more about later. We've got the right people in the room, got the developers talking directly to the person who wanted something. You might think this is a bit far-reached, but no documentation, no requirements, not even any user stories, just a brain dump of what that client wanted. So developers go away, build something and go, how's that? And it might not be right, but it's this fail-fast thing, isn't it? Might not be right, but they can have a look at it and say, well, that's okay, but it'd be better if that was changed. Okay, and you go away, and you're working at that pace rather than waiting for documents, getting things wrong, etc. It also, from I'm very people-y and coaching, so it also helps that relationship building. So when you write a document, you pass it over to someone. There's no relationship building. They just read the document and build something. When people are talking constantly to create something, relationship building, and you are creating a real team, not just within a development or software team, but a team which includes the business constantly, so that they become part of the team. You're not segregated entities. As I say, that might be far-reached at the moment in your heads, and you might think, wow, why would you do that? But it's really worked well there, and we've seen some really good value. Obviously, as I said before, we would then have to go back and retrospectively look at that stuff to make sure that it's stable and performed as it should, and other things like that. So I've covered fail fast. Teams, not meetings. Obviously, you have meetings, but we have meetings for meetings, don't we, in organisations? And you should always have an output from that, and where possible, you should have that team in those meetings because you need everybody to be hearing the same story. And that's quite hard in some organisations, but that really works well because you're going to get an output of every meeting rather than just talk and then walk away from that and wonder what that meeting's about. Outcomes of value, I'm sure you look at that these days. That's a very common thing, but it's how well you do that. It doesn't matter how much effort's put in if there's no value to it. So the council really started looking at rather than having a prioritised list of projects. They have now got a list of outcomes and what value that adds, so they can truly look at what is important to pick up next. Delivery of documentation, that sort of ties into what I was talking about a minute ago. And the typical things, but they're important, a great fun place to work. That's how they felt. They wanted to make IT fun, exciting, and they wanted to bring people on that journey. And so there's got to be some people here that have read the Phoenix Project, and you'll hear that book a lot. Planned and unplanned work comes from that. And if you look at, if you want to draw a plan up for a piece of work, if there's so much unplanned work that's coming in and you're just doing it, what's the point of planning? So you got to figure out what's important, yeah. So if planned work should always be your default, but obviously you'd have to measure whether unplanned work that comes in is a priority over there. But if you just take all the unplanned work as it comes in, and I've seen it many times, what's the point? You may as well just start doing some work and not plan at all. So it's really important to understand the difference between them two. So beyond just coming up with the idea, obviously they wanted to bring it to life for the staff, and that was all their thinking, and I think it's the right thing to do. It's all right putting these things in place and changing things, but obviously you've got to bring them along on that journey. So I don't know how many of you use Kanban boards, but it's something they wanted to introduce. And they are powerful things, whether they're in Trello, whether they're physical boards. I love physical boards. I'm getting old. I really love physical boards. I think the best thing to use in this space. But it's all about visibility. You put everything on there that has to be done, planned and unplanned. You get it all on there. And it's the psychology of, you meet every day and you say, right, I'm doing that today, because all our teams, we have today columns. Yeah, I'm going to get that done today. And unless that person doesn't care or is an absolute idiot, he or she is not going to want to come back the next day and go, no, I haven't done that. It drives that constant flow of work of having that today sort of approach. But again, that means you've got to make your work small. You've got to be able to break those big pieces of work down, which can be challenging if you're not familiar with it. But they really grabbed onto that, the whole of IS and everybody using Kanban boards, and it's really changed. Visibility, everybody knows what's going on, and there is a change in productivity. I mentioned earlier, right people in the room, so that changes lots of things. Traditionally, you might have the BA talking to the developers to build something. We have everybody in that room. We have the business person, we have a product owner if there's a separate one, we have developers, we have whoever you need in that room. It might not be all of that, it might be someone different, but you have in that room who you need to go in there, decide what you're doing so you can go off and start doing it, rather than having 20 meetings to decide how you're going to do it separately with separate people. So there's a lot of value in getting the right people in the room, and that's worked very well for them. And that drives you to deliver value fast, because the right people in there, the right people being in there allows you to start work a whole lot quicker, trust me. And coaching, not teaching, that's a whole concept change, and that's slow burn, and some companies won't wait for that. Some organisations struggle with that because it's a total change in how you deal with people. So one of my mantras is with my teams is I never tell anybody what to do, ever. Never tell a team member what to do. Because in the coaching way, you ask questions and you bring that out of them, because you want them to think, you want them to be the person who's good at what they do. If you keep telling people, you turn them into zombies and they'll just do as they're told. So it's a total different change to dictating and telling people what to do. Okay, so what's changed at the council? The biggest things that's changed is behaviour. And I'm glad that Mike earlier said within digital, culture and behaviours are really important, because I think some people just think it's technology and software, and it certainly isn't. And I think if you haven't got the basis of the right behaviours and the right culture, I think process and technology doesn't matter. I really do, because it's the people that do these things. So somebody mentioned about it's great having all these systems, but when somebody's got to input that data. If people aren't bought into using a system, or it's just clunky to use, are they not going to use it? You've got to look at things like that. So I think the behaviour is the starting point, and it's been great at the council because that's what they've wanted to do. They've wanted to start at looking how to change how their people act and how their people work together, which has been fantastic. IT org structure they changed, which was great from it sounds like semantics, but they've changed the whole tone. So agile coaches, they've got delivery managers, not project managers. They've got product owners, some BAs, but we're going more down the product owners rather than BA approach to get that direct connection. So just those changes in some of those titles have made a lot of difference to how people operate in that business. Focus, so remove the 70, 80 projects, prioritise, have a reasonable number of things that people can work on and focus and stay on them. Delivery factor, I mentioned, I'm not going to go through all of these because of time. Delivery factor was something I mentioned, and that's about get something out the door, get the value to the customer, and worry about making it all, spick and spam after the case. I think that really, your customers will really like that because they're getting something quicker. But you do need to set the expectation there'll be a cost after that because there is work still to do. So I'm going to blast through cover a couple of these things in a bit more detail. So product teams, I want to cover this because this is quite interesting. So product centric is quite a big thing in the digital world these days. But the things I think are great about it are the team thing. So when you set up a project, you form a team, you bring people, as a new project, you get developers, you get BAs, you get whoever's going to be the domain owner in that together. And when you form them, they're not a team, they're a gathering. I would never call them a team because they may know each other, but they don't work together all the time. With a product-centric approach or a dedicated team approach, what you have is this team work together all the time. So they just work on this product. It never changes. So they know each other, they know how each other operates, they know how to wind each other up, they know how the process works, and they become this oiled machine. I call them sausage machines. They become this sausage machine. Work comes from the business and they just bish it out because this is their area of expertise. They build up long-term relationships, and that will improve quality, efficiency, and productivity. Why does it do that? Because a team like this looks after the full life cycle. So you don't have developers throwing it over the wall to deployment throwing it over the wall to support and going, not my problem, support going to have to deal with all that crap I've written. That doesn't exist because they have to do everything. It's the full life cycle. They build it, they support it, they do everything for it. So they've got to think about it. If they've got to support it, they're going to think, am I going to lash this out or am I going to do this properly so I don't have a pain in my butt further down the road? And that really drives that accountability. So for me, that whole, there's other technological reasons to do that sort of thing. But for me, it's that whole thing about the team being responsible and actually pushing out quality information, having that consistent setup to work in the best way. Because we all know when team members change, etc., it's very disruptive to the team and will slow them down. So in projects, when you form, you're spending half your project getting your team to work together. Of course you're going to lose time. And the second piece was coaching. I think that's really worked well for them. Some of you may or may not like some of these approaches, so don't dictate, give guidance. Of course you give guidance, don't dictate to people. Most people want to be responsible. Most people have got a brain and want to think for themselves. Let them think. Ask them good questions. Coaches ask really good questions and draw things out of people. They're the experts, not you, you're the coach. Draw out their skill. Listen to them. A lot of people don't listen to people. Support them. When you talk about you see a lot of people blame one person in the team or it was your fault or whatever. Tell me one positive out of blaming somebody. There isn't. Support them. Yes, they've made mistakes. Support them. It's the only route you can take if you really think about it. Develop behaviours in the people, so make that team work. And let people do. Let them get on with it. Don't micromanage them. Just leave them to it. So I've run multiple teams. I hardly see some of them because they're almost self-organised. They need guidance and that, but they just get on. So those were two big areas that I think have really helped the council. And why does it work for them? I think there's a lot of desire and belief. The desire is fantastic there, and that's not just the people who started this at the council. It's not just the people who started the council. The whole team have really bought into it. It's quite surprising how well it's worked. And they're just doing stuff. They just try. As I say, try stuff. If you don't, try stuff. And if it breaks, change it. I mean, that's what you do. Why would you wait until you've got this perfect thing that isn't perfect? Short focus goals. I don't know how you guys work, but that really works well. Prioritization's really helped them with the zillion projects they've got. And it's probably the biggest thing there is the eureka moment for me. So they had this eureka moment when they went to these conferences that there was a way to change. So I suppose my closing thing is that digital, you hear a lot about technology and software, but in fact I think there's a lot in that, building that platform of how people operate and how you get that working before you even get to technology. I see too many teams choosing a tool and trying to fit into it. I see it all the time and it drives me absolutely nuts. Figure out how you want to work and then find a tool to do it. Why fit into a tool? You see it all the time. I was working with a team the other day and they, we're using Planner on, Microsoft, and I said, yeah, but I want to be able to see what you've planned and what you actually did this week. Oh, it's not very good at that, But why have you built everything in there? So always think about what you want to do. Look at the conceptual side of that before you actually pick. Tools are just enablers. They're not your solution. Okay? Thank you.
Does anyone have a question?
Yeah, Kanban. I've never heard of it. It sounds like an Indonesian fast food thing.
It is. No, it's a bit of a scrum board.
What?
A scrum board.
No.
Scrum is a form of Agile. Kanban is a form of Agile. It's simple. It's a board with all your activity on it. So a typical board in our company would be, it's trying to get work done in short periods. So I'll pick a team that works in weekly. They do stuff weekly and they deliver something at the end of that week, and that's the point, to push that to happen. And they have this week, they have today, they have in progress, and they have done column. That's it. And all you're doing is you get them to roughly estimate if they can do something a week, and then the everyday thing is really pushing productivity, as I said, because you're making something very small, so it's doable in that time, but you cut constant delivery, basically, work getting done rather than getting left or people avoiding it. Because you meet every day, you're just pushing that work all the time. And it's not micromanagement, it's a 10-minute meeting. Well, it's always about an hour the first time you start doing this. But when you get good at it, it's a 10-minute meeting. And it's amazing how much more work gets done and the visibility that creates. So everybody knows what everybody's doing from that minute, from that stand up in the morning. Everybody knows what they're doing, and then they come back the next day. And everything's, but that's so much time. But the amount of value it gives everybody, knowing what everybody else is doing and knowing what's supposed to be done for tomorrow. You don't go a week and then think, I didn't want you to do that. It doesn't happen because you're doing everything. So it's quite a powerful thing. You can use software to do that. And when you're disparate, you do need to use software to do that.
So just add to that, is that it's actually the whole product team, so IT, clinical, finance, accounting, is all part of that process.
There's a hand up here.
So, on that cultural journey you've been on, how have you worked with people that may have struggled to adapt and change, or people that have got authoritative directive styles? How have you brought them on?
You still have that, but it's once you start on this journey and you start looking how Agile works, and I think it's the deliverables. So you've got to have the carrot. So I worked with a team of 25 people on Windows 10. Sounds a lot of people, doesn't it? On the Windows 10 project there. And there was a couple of people when I first met them when I thought, oh my God, this is going to be a nightmare. They've worked in the old ways for so long. All we did was bring them on that journey and listen to them, ask them what their problems are. It's this coaching side of things. And sincerely listen to them and try and be objective with them. Try and understand why they feel like that. Because a lot of that sort of behaviour in council is because it's always been like that, and it'll never change. So you ask them to give you a chance to see that change, and that's why it's got to be small and fast, because you've got to show quickly. Like in any organisation, if something takes you a year to do, you're probably not going to do it because people just don't give you the time to do stuff. So it's working with those people and showing them those benefits, those short-term benefits, those stuff. Oh yeah, this works, and that's how it worked. Using the Kanban boards, they were like, how's that going to help me using Post-its again? That's so against technology. But once they started doing it, they think, this does actually help me every day, and everybody knows what's happening. So it's getting that value early.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Okay, thanks guys.